The police thought this man in a mask sitting in a fake police car was actually a police officer, and due to that mistake, people are dead. This is an affidavit submitted to court. As described below, Vance Luther Boelter embarked on a planned campaign of stalking and violence designed to inflict fear, injure, and kill members of the Minnesota State Legislature and their families. After taking deliberate steps to research his victims and prepare for that campaign, Boelter traveled to the homes of at least 4 public officials during the early morning hours of June 14, 2024. Disguised as a police officer and heavily armed with firearms and body armor, Boelter approached those officials' homes under the guise of lawful authority. That morning, Boelter murdered 2 people and seriously injured 2 others. Boelter's preparation for his stalking and murderous campaign. Evidence uncovered in this investigation indicates that Boelter extensively planned his stalking, murders, and attempted murders. As discussed below, Boelter's preparation efforts included identifying several websites that allow users to search for the personal information of others, like home addresses and family member names. Boelter also made lists containing the names and home addresses of many Minnesota public officials, mostly or all Democrats. He found websites that sold hyper-realistic silicone masks, which look like the mask Boelter wore during at least his shooting of John Hoffman, a senator in the Minnesota State Senate, and his wife. He purchased materials from Fleet Farm for use in his shootings, including flashlights and resources that could be used to create the type of fake police license plate found on Boelter's SUV. Boelter drove that SUV to the home of Minnesota House of Representatives Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman, where Boelter shot and killed Representative and Mr. Hortman. As described below, Boelter undertook these acts and others in preparation for, in furtherance of, and with the intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota elected officials. Chaplin, Minnesota. Attempted murder of State Senator John Hoffman. In the early morning hours of June 14, 2025, Boelter drove in a black SUV equipped with law enforcement-style emergency lights to the home of Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman in Chaplin, Minnesota. Video footage from Senator Hoffman's home depicted Boelter approaching the front door, dressed to impersonate a law enforcement officer, wearing a black tactical vest and holding a flashlight. He wore a flesh-colored mask covering his entire head. That is Boelter knocking on the front door of the Hoffman household. As shown in that footage, and as described later by multiple members of the Hoffman family, Boelter knocked on the door. He shouted repeatedly, "This is the police, open the door." In response to Boelter's shouting, one or both of Senator and Mrs. Hoffman's answered the door. According to a statement later provided to law enforcement by Mrs. Hoffman, Boelter said there had been a shooting reported inside the house, and he asked whether the Hoffmans had any guns. Senator Hoffman responded that there were, but all the firearms were locked away. According to Mrs. Hoffman, at some point in the exchange, she realized that Boelter, who had been shining a flashlight toward the Hoffmans, impaired their view of Boelter, was wearing a mask. This is worth realizing. They realize he's wearing a mask. Upon realizing this, one or both of the Hoffmans told Boelter that Boelter was not a real police officer. Boelter responded by saying something like, "This is a robbery." Mrs. Hoffman reported that Senator Hoffman tried to push Boelter backwards through the front door, at which point Boelter shot Senator Hoffman repeatedly. Mrs. Boelter attempted to shut Boelter outside the home by shutting the door on him, but Boelter then shot Mrs. Hoffman repeatedly. At approximately 2:06 a.m., Senator Hoffman's daughter called 911 to report that her parents had been shot. law enforcement responded and provided medical aid to Senator and Mrs. Hoffman, who were transported to a local hospital with multiple gunshot wounds. Although they suffered critical gunshot wounds, Senator and Mrs. Hoffman were stabilized. These victims survived. Let's continue. Maple Grove, Minnesota, home of Minnesota Public Official 1. After repeatedly shooting the Hoffmans, Boelter traveled to the home of another Minnesota elected representative, Public Official 1, in Maple Grove, Minnesota. More footage of what he looked like. Video footage from surveillance cameras at Public Official 1's home showed Boelter repeatedly ringing the home's doorbell at approximately 2:24 a.m. Boelter wore a black tactical vest bearing a badge resembling those worn by law enforcement. While ringing the doorbell, Boelter loudly said, "This is the police, open the door, this is the police, we have a warrant." He repeated the command several times. Public Official 1 and her family were not at home and did not answer the door. Boelter left the residence. New Hope, Minnesota, home of Public Official 2. Later that night, local law enforcement in New Hope, Minnesota learned of the shooting at Senator Hoffman's home and dispatched an officer to the New Hope home of another Minnesota elected representative, Public Official 2, to conduct a safety check. And here is where the incompetence starts coming in. At approximately 2:36 a.m., an officer encountered a man now believed to have been Boelter sitting in the driver's side seat of a black SUV parked down the street from Public Official 1's home. The officer believed that the SUV, which resembled a squad car and was equipped with a police-style light bar, was in fact a law enforcement officer providing protection for Public Official 2. So, he thought it was a police officer. You can make an argument at this point, I think, already, that the idea of like the black lettering undercover police cars being used helped that. Maybe that's why he didn't recognize. You can't tell for sure what license plate he has on the vehicle at this time. It could have been the obviously fake one. We don't know at this time. As far as I can tell, I can't make it out. But let's continue. The officer reported that the individual sitting in the black SUV was a bald, white male staring straight ahead. Now, to be clear, Vance Luther Boelter has been arrested. There's a photo. He is not bald. If he said he was bald, this means he fell for this mask. The mask that the first victims, without a flashlight in their face, immediately recognized as fake. Okay? This is why I'm saying incompetence, because there's nothing here saying that there's a light shining into the face of this guy. Well, let's continue. Let's go back and really think about this again. The officer tried to speak with that man, but he continued staring straight ahead and did not respond. So he thinks there's a police officer in the car. He is presumably up next to the window, and the man is staring straight ahead. If you want to give him, because we don't have the exact situation, if you want to give him the best benefit of the doubt, it would be what? He's driving alongside and opens the passenger window, and he's a distance away. And the guy's just staring ahead. He's probably holding his gun. Maybe. I would make the assumption he's either holding his gun or wondering if he should grab it. And after he doesn't respond, the officer then drove the rest of the distance to Public Official 2's residence. Just went past. Saw no sign of distress and waited there until additional law enforcement officers joined her. By the time they did, the dark SUV had left the area. Police incompetence. And I'm going to remind you, at this point, no one had died. No one had died. They'd been shot, but they hadn't died. Brooklyn Park, Minnesota murder of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. Around 3:30 a.m., local law enforcement have learned of the shooting at Senator Hoffman's home in Champlin. Went to the home of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota to conduct a safety check. Upon arrival, law enforcement saw a black Ford Explorer SUV parked outside the home. The black SUV resembled a law enforcement squad car and was equipped with police-style lights. Those lights were on and flashing, so the police could not tell the difference with the car. But at this point it says, the SUV's license plate had been replaced with a fake police license plate. That's why I questioned the license plate before. I did read ahead in this one. Normally I don't, but I wanted to see what was all in here so I could cover anything of private data of the representatives. Thankfully, there was nothing here. I don't know if it was fake police. It just said, there's an image, I believe, later of it, but it just says police on it. I can't tell if that was in the previous instance again, but remember, no one has died yet. There's the image of it. Law enforcement arriving at Representative Hortman's home saw Boelter dressed in dark clothes, standing near the front door facing the house. Again, there he is. Moments after their arrival on scene, Boelter fired several gunshots into the house as he moved forward, entering Hortman's home. In dash cam footage from the scene, moments after Boelter fired those shots as he moved into the house, a second set of gunshots can be heard. At the same time, several flashes appear in the entryway doors. About the same time, officers moved towards the home's front door, where they saw Mr. Hortman laying on the floor. Law enforcement approached the fallen Mr. Hortman, who had been struck by multiple gunshots, to try to provide medical assistance. When officers entered the home, they found Representative Hortman suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Officers also found inside the home the Hortman family dog, gravely injured. I did see the dog had to be put down. Representative and Mr. Hortman died from their injuries. So, now we have the deaths. Someone had a perfect opportunity to realize something was up, and they couldn't do it. They had a chance to intervene before the shots were fired. I am very interested to see the dash cams and the body cams. Were they running after, trying to catch up to Hortman, and shoot him, and they couldn't get an angle? Did they think this was an officer engaging with someone because they couldn't tell, and they were afraid to get in the crossfire, so they stayed back? There's going to be a lot of reviews, police reviews after this. That's what I'm saying. And I think it's justified. A lot of things are justified after this. I think looking into police vehicles, standardizations of those, maybe in ways that are harder for the average person to fake. I think a lot of things will be discussed. And I think some people will take the wrong message from this and go, well, that means no one should ever wear a mask except ICE agents. I know that's coming, but let's keep going. Boelter fled the Hortman's home, leaving behind Boelter's 2015 Ford Explorer SUV that was parked outside the home. After obtaining a warrant, officers searched that vehicle. Okay. I mean, I don't know how long it took to get this warrant. I will say, I understand why they needed one. But considering that this had a list, right? Imagine if he fled, shot and killed someone that was on the list, and they would have known if they had been able to go in quicker. I thought maybe there was a delay to like bomb squad or something. Because, who knows what's going on, but that wasn't listed here. I know from my training and experience that Ford did not manufacture 2015 Explorers in the state of Minnesota. I don't know the point of this reference here. Maybe maybe Minnesota has a law where police vehicles have to be manufactured within the state, and therefore this is proof it's not a police vehicle. Other than that, it's someone giving a fun fact. I have to assume that this requirement, for now. Officers with Boelter's, officers, wow, what's going on over here? I don't know what's going on over here with this, there we go. Officers found evidence tying Boelter to the SUV, including a bill for a storage unit with Boelter's name. Officers also found the license plates for the SUV Boelter drove that night. Public records show the SUV is registered to Boelter and his wife. There's been a lot of talk about what was found in the vehicle. This is some of it. It looks like it was taken during daytime. Officers also found approximately 5 firearms in the SUV, including semi-automatic assault-style rifles, as well as a large quantity of ammunition, organized into loaded magazines. They also found a medical kit containing wound treatment supplies and several eye masks of the kind that might be worn while sleeping. So it sounds like his plan was to go on the run in this vehicle. From the SUV, officers recovered several notebooks of handwritten notes. Listed among the pages of those notes were the names of more than 45 Minnesota state and federal public officials, including Representative Hortman, whose home address was written next to her name. And no, I will say that that's not what they're showing here. They're not showing addresses and names. They're explaining this was also written. One of those notebooks contained a list of internet-based people search engines, including True People Seek, Spokey, Pipple, People's Finders, Been Verified, White Pages, Truth Finders, and Tellus, Ownerly, US Search, and People Looker. I get the feeling we might get some legislation cracking down on those after this. I know from my training and experience and the training and experience of other officers and agents involved in this investigation that these websites aggregate data from various online and offline sources to provide the querying user details about the search for persons, such as home addresses, phone numbers, and information about family members. And I've seen people ask on social media, why is this written down? Why isn't this on his phone or a laptop? He's like 57, I think. Also, a big reason would be you're probably going to ditch those things at some point if you're trying to not get caught. You don't want to be tracked. Your notebook isn't going to have a Wi-Fi connection to track you. In addition, officers found a Garmin GPS navigation device in the SUV. That device's trip history included the addresses of Representative Hortman's home in Brooklyn Park, Public Official 1's home in Maple Grove, Senator Hoffman's home in Chaplin. The trip history also included the home addresses for at least 2 other state officials. So sounds like the police showing up did prevent him from going back to the vehicle and just continuing. Upon searching the surrounding area, law enforcement found components of a disassembled Beretta 92 9mm semi-automatic handgun and at least 3 magazines strewn across the ground a few blocks from Representative Hortman's home. This seems like a completely pointless thing to do. Rounds contained in one or more of these magazines bore the same head stamp as the discharge cartridge casings found within or in the immediate vicinity of Representative Hortman's home. Records accessible to law enforcement indicate this Beretta was purchased by Boelter in or about January 2000. In the same general area, law enforcement also found a flashlight, a tactical body armor vest, and a mask, all consistent with those Boelter had been seen wearing earlier in the morning. According to records obtained by law enforcement, Boelter purchased 3 Beretta handguns as well as many other firearms. Subsequent investigation and Boelter's apprehension. Law enforcement obtained information to track the locations of cell phones known to be used by Boelter and his wife. That's what I said. That's why you write things down. A lot of people are like, this has to be staged because it's written down. No, he did enough preparation to buy a mask and used a fake police car. You don't think he's going to be worried about GPS. But law enforcement used the resulting data to locate Mrs. Boelter. And there's been a lot of questions about her. We'll get into what happened here. Mrs. Boelter consented to a law enforcement search of her phone. That search revealed that around 6:18 a.m., Mrs. Boelter and other family members received a group text from Boelter. In that text, Boelter wrote, among other things, "Dad went to war last night. I don't want to say more because I don't want to implicate anybody. It is worth mentioning he also had a home with a roommates and like best friend who said something similar. He sent them some sort of a message, and the security camera showed him stopping by there that morning. And that's the same best friend who said that he is a Trump supporter, Republican, and the reason it was up in the air, by the way, about his party affiliation is the state he currently resides doesn't mark your party. It's open, so you can. There's not like a mark for like. If I'm remembering right, for Minnesota, if you are a Republican or Democrat when you sign up to vote. In Oklahoma, he registered as a Republican. In Minnesota, he voted in the presidential primary. He did, according to the Democratic side, he did not vote in their party, but the Republican Party of Minnesota refused to comment, but he did vote. So, yeah, there's been a lot of misinformation involving this guy's politics. Look, there are videos of him doing preaching in Africa, like evangelical preaching, as I'm assuming is what you would call it, complaining that people in America don't know what sex they are, right? His politics are not up for question in reality. There's also an anti-abortion swing to some of it. Just, it's very clear. Let's continue. Around the same time, Mrs. Boelter received a text message from Boelter stating, among other things, "Words are not going to explain how sorry I am for the situation. There's going to be some people coming to the house armed and trigger happy, and I don't want you guys around." A lot of people were wondering, why did she flee with all these items and things she had? Listen, if she really didn't know what was going on, and her husband's like, look, people are going to be trigger happy coming to our home, I don't want you there, it explains it, right? I'm not saying she's not possibly theoretically an accomplice or knew this was going to happen. More investigation will be done. He's alive. We'll get more statements, right? But I understand the wife's approach here. If she doesn't know what's going on, Mrs. Boelter consented to a search of her car. From the car, law enforcement recovered 2 handguns, approximately $10,000 in cash, and passports for Mrs. Boelter and her children, who were in the car with Mrs. Boelter at the time. There was talk of passports, and here they're confirming it's for Mrs. Boelter and her kids, because people were wondering, is she trying to meet up with her husband and escape the country? Sounds like she was just trying to get out with her kids and get them to safety. I'm not sure of their ages. Might be adult, doesn't really matter. A lot of adult kids live at home. It's 2025 and things are unlivable. Law enforcement obtained cell phone location information from multiple phones known to be associated with Boelter. That information data led law enforcement to a residence on Fremont Avenue in North Minneapolis. Law enforcement also found this same Fremont Avenue address in the Garvin's trip history described above. At the Fremont home, law enforcement encountered and interviewed a man who said he lives in the Fremont residence, and he explained he shares it with Bolton at least part-time. I'm assuming that's going to be the friend who was explaining, who answered a lot of the early questions about the political stance. Officers conducted a warranted search of the Fremont Avenue residence. Officers found a handwritten list of names containing many of those same public officials named in the notebooks found in Boelter's SUV as described above. Officers also found a purchase receipt from Fleet Farm dated June 9th, 2025. That's some decent premeditation. Of course, it was obviously premeditated, but it's just more evidence, which documented the purchase of, among other things, a flashlight, tactical rifle case, 2 types of firearm ammunition, and the materials believed to have been used to create the fake police license plate attached to Boelter's SUV. Law enforcement also found several notebooks containing handwritten notes. These notebooks were in addition to those recovered from the SUV. Among those pages of various notebooks, officers found lists of the names and often home addresses of numerous Minnesota public officials, including Representative Hortman, one of the people Boelter shot and murdered on June 14th. Beneath her name, a notation reads, "Married, Mark, 2 children, 11th term." Mark was the name of Representative Hortman's husband. Another notation in one of the recovered notebooks names Hortman, her address, and her spouse again, with the added notation, "Big house off golf course, 2 ways in, watch from 1 spot." This is an apt description of the Hortman's home, which backs up to a golf course. Another notebook notation lists 3 websites for companies that sell face masks, similar to the one Boelter wore. One of those websites describes itself as your premier destination for high-end, hyper-realistic silicone masks. That is, these are going to be some quotes. These are going to be good enough that people are going to be able to figure out what the websites are. Another of those websites asserts it sets a new standard in hyper-realistic silicone masks. Mask advertised on one of the websites noted on the left, Boelter wearing mask immediately prior to the shooting on... I'm assuming the one on the left, maybe there's makeup added. Maybe that's definitely got some different color grading. He could have also bought a cheaper mask. Couldn't have been this. Might have not been the same mask. We don't know. In the video footage from the area of Fremont Avenue, residents obtained by law enforcement, Boelter can be seen returning to that residence in the morning after his murder of the Holtmans and the shootings of the Hoffmans. According to an interview later conducted by law enforcement with Witness 1, approximately 7 a.m. on June 14th, Boelter met Witness 1 at a bus stop at 48th Avenue North and North Lyndale Avenue in North Minnesota. Witness 1 reported to law enforcement he had no prior connection with Boelter prior to meeting at the bus stop. According to Witness 1, Boelter had 2 duffel bags with him. Boelter asked to purchase an electronic bike from Witness 1. After Witness 1 agreed, they together boarded a bus and traveled to Witness 1's residence. After arriving at Witness 1's residence, Boelter asked to purchase Witness 1's Buick sedan as well. Witness 1 agreed. Around this time, Boelter and Witness 1 drove the Buick to a U.S. bank branch location in Roddensdale, Minnesota, where Boelter withdrew $2,200 from and thereby emptied an account in his name. Cameras at the bank captured Boelter wearing a cowboy hat. Boelter reportedly provided about $900 to Witness 1 to complete the purchase of the e-bike and the Buick. Okay. Around 2:30 a.m., June 15th, law enforcement received information about a possible sighting as an individual riding an e-bike approximately 2 miles northeast of Boelter's family home in Green Isle, Minnesota. However, law enforcement was unable to locate Boelter at that time. So what's interesting is it would have been safer for him probably to kill this man and take the e-bike, right? It probably would have been safer to kill him. So to me, this is definitely a targeted, he wanted to go just at these people. Law enforcement investigated further and discovered the Buick that Boelter purchased from Witness 1 abandoned on Highway 25, close to the location of the reported e-bike sighting. Law enforcement approached the vehicle using a drone to check for explosives or other potential safety concerns. Search of that vehicle uncovered, among other things, what appeared to be the cowboy hat Boelter wore when captured on the U.S. bank security footage, as well as a handwritten letter directed to the FBI. I would love to see that letter. In that letter, the writer, who claimed he was Dr. Vance Luther Boelter, admitted to being the shooter at large in Minnesota involved in 2 shootings the morning of Saturday, June 15th. So, the thing is, it probably also contained his motive. Decent chance. We're going to get that at some point. At approximately 9:10 p.m. on June 15, 2025, law enforcement located Boelter in the field of Green Isle, Minnesota, approximately 1 mile from his family residence. Officers took Boelter into custody. Sounds like he gave up, right? Sounds like he gave up. Probably saw the manhunt underway. He definitely knew the FBI was involved, and sounds like he gave up to me and was trying to find a way to turn himself in. Hey, maybe he saw all the coverage calling him a Democrat and it enraged him and he wanted to make sure he got his story out there. We'll find out. Based on the foregoing, I submit there is probable cause to believe that on or about June 25th in the state and district of Minnesota, Vance Luther Boelter committed stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2261A, use of a firearm to murder during in relation to stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. 924, and discharge of a firearm during in relation to stalking violation of 18 U.S.C. 924. So this is what sucks about this is the police should have been able to do the way it's described here. Now, mind you, we don't have the body cams and we don't have everything. The way it is described here, if the police had acted differently, no one would have died. Now, I also should mention that, as I said, the wife people are like, she's 100% an accomplice, which this doesn't seem to be supporting, at least to me. People are also saying that the wife worked for Tim Walz, different woman with the same name, very different woman, like it's been confirmed. Also, people are saying, well, this guy was a appointee of Tim Walz years ago, and therefore he's obviously a Democrat. It was a nonpartisan business position. I listened to a little bit of the interviews and things with his friend. It seems like he's having issues with his business ventures and things. Sounds like maybe money, life isn't going great. I don't know. I do find it weird. He has a wife and kids, but also has a second place that he's sometimes living with a guy. That's going to come out at some point. You might be thinking, that's super strange. Please understand, the Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, last I read, is also living in a house away from his wife with a bunch of men. So, I don't know why this is, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's weird to me, but it's a thing. His politics, I don't think, are up for debate. I mean, his sermons are online, right? And I do think that he's probably going to be, there's two options. I think he's either going to be vocal about his political motivations and view himself as a martyr, or he's going to go completely silent and just try to not speak at all, and we aren't going to hear much other than obviously what comes out in the investigation. But there's always a chance he's tries to spin it no, I'm actually secret Antifa, and turn himself in a martyr that way to try to turn against who he might view as enemies. Again, the politics we have are anti-trans, anti-abortion, pro-Trump. That's the things that have come out in his sermons and from his friends and people that knew him. Beyond that, we have to wait. Of course, also remember, this is the FBI saying his list was mostly or all Democrats. So it's this is a political crime. It's a political crime. He went after elected representatives in an assassination. Now, it's terrorism, right? This is just domestic terrorism, and they aren't one to call it that. We're going to have to keep up with it, follow it. There'll be more to come. There'll be a lot of things that won't come out until the actual trial. Obviously, he's going to have a federal trial. I assume state charges as well. And if you're wondering, well, why would they have state charges if they've already got federal charges? He's obviously never getting out. People don't want him pardoned. I'll leave it at that. I've seen some people worried he's going to get a pardon. State charges are going to come too. And if things don't come out in the federal trial, more might come out in the state trial. Just like when we watched, for example, Lori Vallow, more came out in Arizona that didn't originally come out in Idaho. We're just going to have to see what makes it to the public.